Here is a time lapse of my latest line of stickers, homemade jam and preserves. I made these while streaming, which is why you sometimes see that little cow in the corner. You should join me next time, Sunday evenings on Twitch. Anyway, when I was first making the cranberry jar, I didn't have anything in particular in mind while working, just the usual dreams of escapism and how nice it would be to have my own little homestead where I could live off the food I produced, the stuff millennials typically dream of. I had already made some other cranberry themed art. I went through a phase, okay? So I felt like I had a pretty good handle on what cranberries looked like inside a jar all cooked up, and as you can see, I had plenty of references. It was as I was adding the other two varieties that I had more uncertainty about how I was doing what I was doing, and since I often get asked, how do you do that? I thought I'd give some thought to those thoughts. I get asked both by people who don't do art and people who are just starting to do art, something along the lines of, how did you know to put that mark there? And the answer is usually pretty disappointing. I didn't know until I did it. I was making something at one of my day jobs recently, and my goal was to keep it loose and abstract, and I wanted to get it done quickly. So I'm putting the final touches on it, and I add a few dots. That's it. Just a few dots in a corner, and it kind of pulled the whole thing together. One of my coworkers who was watching, who is in the early-ish stages of their art journey, asked, "How did you know that's what it needed? Because that looks perfect." And my answer was a riveting, "Well, I didn't, really. I just tried it and it worked out." And we had a little conversation about it, but it really just amounted to me saying, you have to screw around and find out. Something I've noticed in my time instructing art and doing art in a public way is that a lot of people struggle with the fact that art is just trying stuff, seeing what happens, and learning how to backtrack when you don't like how it looks. But the more you do it, the more you become comfortable with the materials and how you want things to look, the more you feel comfortable trying things. I didn't do particularly well in my digital painting classes when I was working for my degree. They wanted a certain level of realism and textural accuracy, and I struggled. While I'm pretty proud of how these pieces came out, I'm not convinced they would have met the standards for that class. It was really tough, and my art was always just a little too cartoony. So it's good to remember that art is subjective, and sometimes what I think looks good doesn't look good to someone else, and that goes for the inverse as well. That also means that if you're creating art for yourself, you get to decide what looks good, so there's no reason not to experiment. Nobody else has the vision in their head, no one has the expectations that you do, so they're not gonna know that your art isn't good enough, or accurate enough, or whatever enough. They're just gonna see your art and say, hey cool, how did you do that? That said, I don't know why digital painting feels so different from making other kinds of art. The principles are the same: draw, color, blah blah perspective, blah blah light source, but it's just different, and it's a huge challenge for me, and I feel like every move I make is, I don't know, this? But I stopped questioning it a while ago and just recognized that it's a different medium, and it has its own rules as a medium. It has its pros and cons for sure, with its digital tools and the ability to do endless layers that I don't label properly, Control-Z, but the principles are still there. I still have to try things and see what they do. So to my coworker and anyone else who is hesitant to move forward in art because they aren't sure what the next step is, take that step anyway. Try something and see what happens. And we really can't dismiss the references. I used photos because I knew it would help me get the realistic appeal that I wanted, but there's zero shame in using art references despite what people might say. You don't know how to handle shading or drawing a nose, anything? Find an artist you like and pick apart their art. Do a study. All a study is a copy, and as you copy what they did, you train yourself to see what they see, and it's super useful. And then you take those techniques into a new piece. Anyway, I definitely felt more confident by the time I got to the blueberries. Weeks have actually passed in real time between these pieces, and I had a better understanding of how to start and layer the individual berries for the best effect. But I'm still very much experimenting, using a small brush to sort of scratch a texture onto the berry, and there's a lot more color shift happening because blueberries hate being limited to a single hue. And since I had already put in so much work on the jar in the first place, I just used it again as a template and adjusted the colors. More upsides to digital art? Copy and paste your templates. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. The peach came together in record time, and I think that's because of how chopped up they are. The berries are already small, so you don't need to process them as much as a large peach that gets cut down. And I did have a reference, but I think I was using my phone by this point, so sadly it's not pictured here. But this was the point where I really started to think, man, how do I do this when I'm adding all these floaty bits to the peach preserves, kind of like it had in the reference? I wasn't sure what I was doing. Like, I'm looking at the reference, and I'm going, the stuff goes here, a floaty bit there, and a floaty bit here, and look, it eventually came together. I always try to reiterate to people that I'm still learning and growing as an artist. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm figuring it out. And that's the only way you're going to grow too. We've all heard of FAFO, right? That's all art is. Anyway, I wish I had some of these jams right now. I'm still holding on to my homestead dream. Gotta dream of something. I sent out the cranberry preserves as part of the sticker club on my Patreon, and all of them are available now on my website. Hope to see you there. Thanks for watching.